Hi everyone, welcome to Innovation Fika with me, Donny, here live from London, and I'm in Ideal London. Ideal London.
That's correct.
Here with John Spindler.
That's right.
Who is the manager of Ideal London?
I'm the CEO of Capital Enterprise, and this is one of the 36 projects we run across the UK.
Okay, CEO of Capital Enterprise.
Yes.
Okay, we'll be getting back to that because, as you know, this is a Wednesday afternoon show. Every Wednesday afternoon, 2:30 p.m. on LinkedIn, live for the world. This, however, is a recording because we're in London and we're running around and John had to be somewhere. So, but it will be broadcast live, 2:30 p.m. So watch and follow Innovation Fika on LinkedIn and YouTube, of course. Coming back to you, John, I always start my interviews by saying, who are you and what do you do? And you kind of started with that, but let's continue with that.
I'm the CEO of Capital Enterprise. Capital Enterprise is a not-for-profit based in the UK, based here in London, and we are there to support founders of tech startups. Our mission is to help them overcome the barriers that startup can scale. And we're also a membership group of around 60 universities, incubators, accelerators that we support to offer services to startups.
So Capital Enterprise supports this network of, you said 60?
Yeah, 60 members, yes, correct.
Wow, that's quite a lot of members to support.
Yes, universities like UCL, this is UCL Space, so Ideal London. We've got a big footprint in the north of England, working with the likes of University of Sheffield, University of Manchester, and we basically support quite a lot of accelerators, both practically and financially, to run their offers to startups.
And this is one of them?
This is one of our 36 projects.
Ideal London, okay. So what happens here at Ideal London? This is UCL?
Yes, this is set up by UCL, actually now UCL Department of Engineering, in which computer science sits, and the purpose of this space is to allow UCL to engage with tech startups in London. We are in the edge of Shoreditch, which is the kind of traditional, the last 12 years, has been the epicenter for tech startups in London.
And you mentioned another bunch of names, accelerators that people probably have heard of as well, that you've worked with.
Yes, when the London startup ecosystem was smaller and less developed, between 2013 to 2019, Capital Enterprise supported accelerators financially and practically, like Techstars, the startup.
We know Techstars, yes.
C-Camp, that's now more of a fund rather than an accelerator, and people like Entrepreneur First, and Space Camp, and Startup Boot Camp, and Private Host Orders.
So that's quite a legacy as well, that you've actually helped sort of get all of those.
Yes, I think they were very useful. I think in the early days, as they progressed and became more established and more financially viable, I think we needed less, to be honest. And now the ecosystem in London really survives without any kind of support from public, a little bit from private, mainly self-financing.
So what do you see sort of happening in London now? Now that everything is sort of getting there, so what do you sort of focus your efforts on these days?
Well, we are still where we started, actually. We are mainly supporting first-time founders. We do have a few second or third, but mostly first-time founders. We're mainly starting from the idea to MVP to the first signal stage, so in their pre-seed and seed stage. And the challenge of doing that is maybe greater now than it was 5-6 years ago.
Yeah. So if we have, this show goes out to the whole world. I know we have a lot of, I was going to say in Sweden, I used to say we have a lot of foreign viewers, but of course in London we have even more foreign viewers because we have the Swedes as well. So anybody coming to, or considering the UK then as a market for their startup or their enterprise, any sort of do's and don'ts, anything to, where would they start? Where would they?
Well, one good place would be to come to us. So we're very open. The great thing I think about the London startup ecosystem traditionally has been how open it is.
Yes.
I think we were talking earlier when we supported 14 accelerators from 2016 and 2019 in London, for instance. And we have data about the 860 companies that went through those accelerators in that 3-year period. They're all very different. There's that roughly around 450 went on to raise finance. Some of those now are unicorns, and over 60% of those founders' teams were from overseas.
One might think that, well, London, that's fintech. you know, but there's more than that.
I think fintech has been the big success of London.
Yeah.
That is no doubt, and this is some of the reasons why. I think we have very good talent in that area. I think we have a track record of investors supporting and making money out of backing fintechs, so that they like to do more. Thirdly, I think very importantly, there are early adopter customers here.
Yeah.
If you're doing a B2C fintech, it's easier and quicker to get regulated in the UK than virtually anywhere else in the Western economy, so you can get to market quicker. And we are at the edge of the city of London, still one of the highest concentrations of financial services companies in the world.
How big is London in the population as well?
It's just under 9 million, but if you take the 50-mile radius, there's around about 20 million.
That's 2 Swedens.
Yes.
There only. It's just, I mean, so the access. I know that you had like five sort of points of a working ecosystem, right? And then the access to market and
I always think access to market is important. When I've been to Silicon Valley, I've been very conscious that one of the great advantages there is they have a startup ecosystem to sell into.
Yes.
And I
The
think
creative customer that wants to buy what you're selling.
Well, innovation is normally bought by people who understand innovation.
Yeah.
And no one understands innovation better than actually early startups. And we are now at the stage of our size, the ecosystem in London. It's not the same size as Silicon Valley, but it's a substantial size where, yes, and also larger companies have benefited from effectively getting the brightest and the smartest to basically work with them.
And that was I know that John went through 5 points, but talent was your first one, right?
I think the talent is really important, not just entrepreneurial talent, but the first team.
Yeah.
And the labour market here is the biggest in Europe for highly university educated tech staff. I think the other one's access to funding.
Yes.
Again, a very active basic ecosystem, particularly at the angel stage compared to Europe anyway. I think very important, we talked about early markets, which are support ecosystem. We talked about accelerators, incubators, co-working spaces, mentors. All of that is there. This is one of our jobs, is to try and coordinate that and access to that, which is really, really kind of very important.
Yeah. We've been here for 3 days now, and we've been very, very fortunate to have met fantastic people like yourself and your team, and everybody has been very generous and open and also welcoming as an environment for startups, and also sort of, I think, as you said, it's a very open, inclusive, welcoming environment, and we felt very much at home here with our startups.
Well, thank you for that. I mean, London, sometimes that's not kind of projected enough overseas because of certain things that the UK did recently, but it's a very multinational, multicultural society here. There's more languages spoken in London than even in New York, and everyone has a community. I'm sure in the last 3 days, lots of your teams have been minging. I've got friends to go and visit, I've got people to see, etc., etc. It's not, you're not an alien here. There's always a community for it. There's also a community of startups. And I also come back to the point, most of the investors and most of the accelerators and most of the universities and all this have done very well at supporting teams overseas.
Yeah.
So we all look for more.
Yeah. It's fascinating. And this is the first time we're doing the program live in the UK. We've had a virtual one before during COVID, so we're very pleased to be here with our teams for this live week and actually experiencing the nano ecosystem firsthand. So if anybody else, I know you said that just come here, but if anybody else out there is curious about the English market, where could they just start by contacting you? Or where would they start?
They can come to me. There's an organisation called London Partners.
London Partners.
Which is funded by the Mayor of London.
Yes.
Which has a very basic active tech support basic service to try and support tech companies, particularly those that are a little bit more developed than we do.
Yeah.
Those that have have significant revenue and looking for their second market. I suppose I pride ourselves, I think, and we are one of the ones that were very receptive and very early.
Yeah. And if you were going to give any tips for the people listening in sort of do's and maybe don'ts, I mean, what do you see are the main reasons for things not working out? Anything there?
I think if there's no particular reason why this product could work in this market, I think that's going to be difficult.
Yes.
I think it is international more so than I would say the States, in terms of we don't expect all your customers to be in the UK. We don't expect all your funding to be in the UK. We'd expect all your teams to be in the UK. Much more open, I think, than say the American system is. But it does help. Yeah. It does help that the people like myself can do something practical to help you. Yeah. So if you come to here from Sweden and you say my customers in Sweden, my team is in Sweden, etc., I'm going to say, well, what can I do to help?
Exactly. Yeah. And I think there's in general, there's an I don't want to say overzealous, but there's a very, you tend to overestimate the importance and interest of your product before you actually validate it to the market. And
very much true.
Everybody wants this, right? I mean, I love it because it's mine.
We've all got confirmation bias.
Of course.
And we all love our own babies.
And is there any trends in like the UK or London market that you see, like this is sort of hot now or coming up, or anything that sort of?
Well, I mean, there's a negative trend. It's the markets are down. That's affected everything, and so that makes it more difficult, particularly for scaling companies at the moment to get funding.
Yeah.
And that's true here. I think it's true in America. It's probably true everywhere now. On terms of startups, you're very much talking about what is the big wave. What are we seeing that's really exciting? I think there's one demographic which is how different is this Generation Z from millennials in terms of their desires, tastes, and expectations.
Yeah.
But all the tech products aimed at consumers are being built by millennials for millennials. There is an interesting thing we're all trying to work out. As the generation under 25, how significantly different are they and what they want and their expectations? Does that give gaps for new products to take on? Established products that are really fit for the millennial? I don't know, but I'm fascinated to find out.
Yeah.
You've got big technical kind of breakthroughs happening in science and engineering in certain markets. So obviously, I'm an AI investor as well, so particularly in the field of AI, but also I think you can see the same with the impact of genomics, biomarkers, medicine. I think you can look at the kind of massive impact of Web 3.0 that's about to merge in not just in finance but in other areas like logistics. And I think finally, we back here, we've done a program, an event recently, we put even some money, our own money into what we think that could be the emerging game changer around quantum computing. So, but if you come, the great thing about the London market, there's a massive amount of variety of opinions. And therefore you're dealing with something like 200 VCs that all will say, oh, it's missed art, I think it's this. So that gives you the sense of the broadness of what.
But that's the advantage of the scale as well, because I remember that from being in the US, is that the market is so big and so varied that no matter, I'm not going to say, well, almost no matter what niche you're in, there's always a target group for you. However, within a smaller market, the niches are often too small to support.
I think also there's a slight problem is that in a small market there's only one investor.
Yeah.
They become the gatekeeper.
Yeah.
I mean, no investor can invest in everything. So they become a natural gatekeeper, and we've all got our biases, we've all got our preferences. We've all got things that we've made money in the past and we tend to favour making money again.
Yeah. And another thing I know you mentioned before as well was that the difference between B2C and B2B, that B2C will generally cost you more to scale on a massive scale. Where B2B, you can find a customer quicker that will start paying you money.
Yes, it looks at early stage pre-seeded seed investors less of a market risk to do B2B.
Yeah.
Ironically, B2C may give you bigger outcomes, but if you're only writing checks under $1 million, to launch a B2C seems $1 million doesn't be very far, unless, as I was speaking to your team today, if they have some innovation on their go-to-market strategy. Yeah. If they can acquire customers without having to pay Google and Facebook, all that money to acquire them.
Of course. And which of course makes the case for, we're talking about trends and the market's going down and it's slightly harder to get the money to scale big on maybe than B2C. Then one could also, not saying don't do B2C, do B2B, but one could see that maybe B2B is easier to raise money for.
Yeah, it has. I mean, you get these ways. In lockdown, there was a massive wave of last mile delivery, and in Europe, we had, and London was, had probably more than anyone.
Yeah.
You had all these last minute mile delivery companies, and obviously they managed to raise a lot of money because the size of the prize was so big. But now we're down maybe to 1 or 2 then. And a lot of investors are being burnt. I do think at the moment the market's going to be hard to do this thing what we often call blitz scaling, using investors' money to kind of muscle through the problems of getting to scale. I think there's going to be less investors prepared to do that at the moment. And we, but there'll be still smart people that's discovered a big problem, even in BTC, that until we see them, we don't see kind of really what the opportunity is. They are really our scouts for what is the future, as opposed to us.
But that's so true, because I mean the definition of, I remember one famous Nobel Prize winner, Albert Samporsky, he said, discovery is looking at the same thing as everybody else, but seeing something completely different. And we can't see it yet, because somebody else will see it for us.
And we're always slightly behind on the trend. And we're trying desperately to catch up. And in many ways we have an advantage. You are an advisor or an investor who see a lot, is that your job in many ways is to communicate what you see and to try and spot some patterns, which gives you indications or gives you signals of what the future could be and where opportunities are. And then obviously you try, keeping confidentiality there, and try and share some of that insight.
Yeah. Wonderful. I won't keep you too much longer. I know you want to have a short break, and this is also a short coffee break. The Innovation Fika is my Wednesday afternoon coffee break show that I do every Wednesday afternoon on LinkedIn. And this has been, I think it's episode 83 actually of my Innovation Fika. So thank you so much, John. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you much. I'll just say, Sweden, Stockholm and London, we should be working more together.
Well, it starts here. It all starts here. Wonderful. And thank you everyone. I'll see you next week. Bye for now.
Thank you.